You ever have that one episode of that one show that you just cannot shut up about? I have recently found my favorite cartoon episode of all time, and today I'm going to talk about it. If you couldn't tell from the title and the thumbnail and the outfit on my avatar, my favorite episode of all time is Sock Opera from Gravity Falls. Sock Opera isn't the best cartoon episode of all time, but it's definitely my favorite, and it was the episode that got me hyper-fixated on the show in the first place. Which is probably why it's my family's least favorite episode. Even though most of them have never even seen Gravity Falls. Anyways, this video is just kind of going to go through the episode and review it and even talking about some critiques I have, because just because it's my favorite episode of all time doesn't mean it's perfect. So the episode starts out with Mabel and Dipper opening up the laptop that they found in the bunker a few episodes before. Seuss apparently having fixed it. But upon opening the computer, Dipper and Mabel realize that it has an 8-letter password. So naturally, they decide to try every single 8-letter word in existence. But before the mystery twins can start trying passwords, Mabel notices a boy. Oh no. He's putting on a puppet show for a bunch of kids in the library that they're in, and once he finishes, Mabel goes up to try to flirt with him. And for once, it works. Thing is, she lied to him and told him that she knows all about puppets and is going to be putting on a puppet show this weekend. So she goes back to Dipper and says,
Dipper, how hard do you think it would be to write and compose a sock puppet rock opera with lights, original music, and live pyrotechnics by Friday?
What?
And Dipper is pretty ticked off about this because they were supposed to be trying to figure out the password. But Mabel insists and he agrees to help her first, and then they can go back to solving mysteries together. So they work on their respective projects over the week, and Mabel's show is looking pretty good. But Dipper is having a lot of trouble with figuring out the laptop password, to the point where he's hardly sleeping. Hyperfixating on a project to the point of not sleeping? You're not alone, Dipper. You're not alone. So one night, Dipper is sitting on the roof of the Mystery Shack trying to figure out the password when a familiar triangle decides to show up after like 7 whole episodes and offers to help Dipper with the computer. Now things are getting interesting. Dipper responsibly declines and tells Bill to go away. And he does! Next morning, Mabel is pretty much done with most of the stuff that she needed to do for her play, and agrees to help Dipper with the computer. But then, that weird Gabe kid shows up at the Mystery Shack because he knows exactly where Mabel lives, and that isn't creepy at all. Anyways, he starts going off about how, some random puppet show he saw the other day had inconsistent stitching on the puppets, and that ruined the whole show. I don't know, man. Mabel rightfully freaks out because she has no idea what she's talking about, and she pumps her show preparation up to 100, which ticks off Dipper even more because he wanted to solve mysteries. So he goes back up to his room, where he promptly falls asleep and is visited by Bill again, who turns up the stakes by making it look like Dipper only has 2 minutes to enter the right password. Dipper then makes a deal with Bill, who promises him help in return for a puppet. He then destroys the computer and possesses Dipper's body. He said he's going to destroy the journal, too, since Dipper's getting too close to some big answers. Oh man, now it's really getting interesting. Bill in Dipper's body, also known as Bipper, then slaps himself in the face, throws himself down the stairs, pours soda in his eyes, and stabs himself with some forks because pain is hilarious! Truly compelling character here, folks. Dipper says that he hid the journal somewhere Bill would never find it, but then Mabel comes in to inform them both that she's going to use the journal as a prop in her play. Much to Bill's excitement, the cast then packs up all the props and puppets and heads off to the theater, with Dipper Mindscape flying behind them. Once at the theater, Mabel realizes that she has no one to play the Reverend in the play, because plot convenience, and Bipper, knowing exactly what a Reverend is, generously decides to play the part because he'll get to hold the journal and, I don't know, eat it or something. Books are not as easy to destroy as computers, Bill. You should know this. Anyways, Dipper... oh my god. I spelled Dipper's name wrong in the script, and it says diaper. Quite fitting. Anyways, he decides to possess a puppet so he can talk to Mabel, and she takes the whole situation way less seriously than she probably should, but I can't really blame her. How seriously could anyone really take him when he looks like this? Then Gabe comes in and says how much he likes to play, and he wants to take her out to eat Bugattis later. Mabel is really excited about this, but still wants to help Dipper, so she says that she'll go and get the journal and keep it safe if Dipper takes over the show for a bit. But, uh-oh, Bipper shows up in a rad new costume and tries to convince Mabel to give him the book. Of course she says no, and Bipper has to fight her for it. But since Bill is in Dipper's noodly and sleep-deprived body, he doesn't stand a chance. So Mabel literally tickles him out of Dipper's body, and Dipper takes it back. Then Mabel blows up all the puppets, which majorly ticks off Gabe. Like, he is super upset about this. It's pretty hilarious. But it is then revealed that he makes out with his puppets, which is weird. So, yeah. Everyone hates the show because we're making fun of cliches in this episode. Yay. And Dipper probably needs to go to the hospital. Because, forks, soda in your eyes, that can't feel good. Anyways, that's pretty much the episode. Most of the stuff that I was kind of making fun of in the episode was just some friendly poking. I'll get to my actual critiques a little bit later. If you haven't really watched Gravity Falls, this episode might not sound all that interesting, if not a bit dark and disturbing, which, yeah, it is. But a lot of fans share the sentiment that this is one of the best episodes in this series, along with Northwest Mansion Mystery, A Tale of Two Stands, and the series finale. But that kind of falls under a different category entirely. I think the reason that these episodes are loved so much is because they each have a great combo of things that makes Gravity Falls so great. I might talk about those episodes another day, but this video is about sock opera. Also, it's been several months and I'm still not emotionally prepared to talk about A Tale of Two Stands, let alone Weirdmageddon. So, as far as what I love about this episode, the comedy is amazing. It has a great mix of angry puppet faces, ticklish demons, and some thinly veiled masochism. This episode definitely has a morbid sense of humor, but makes it work without being too dark, and can still be entertaining to kids, if not a bit traumatizing. The idea that Bill is deeply confused about being ticklish, but also being completely unfazed by literally stabbing himself, pouring soda into his eyes, and racing to the bottom of the stairs is equally hilarious and confusing. On a kind of related note, scientists actually don't know why humans evolved to be ticklish. The most commonly accepted theories is that it's either a bonding mechanism or a self-defense mechanism. And yes, my brain is home to several equally strange and random facts. Anyways, back to the episode. I definitely prefer Dipper and Bill's plot to Mabel's, but I really do enjoy Mabel's plot a lot. Mainly because of the sock opera itself. I love her play so much because it brings me back to the kinds of stories I wrote when I was younger. None of my old stories really had much of a romance element, but the way the story was told, the slightly confusing plot, absolutely no transition between plot points, and the literal self-insert Mary Sue is so accurate to a lot of young writers' stories, including my own. By the way, tell me in the comments if you want me to make a video about my older stories and fanfictions, because they're pretty cringy and hilarious to me. Something else I really love about this episode is the character development. Even at this point, a lot of people were complaining about how Mabel seemed a bit selfish, and I think it was really well addressed in the episode. And Mabel absolutely does not deserve all the hate she gets. Dipper also had some really amazing character development in this episode, with him having to put up with being on the sidelines and not really able to do anything, despite it being his own body that was on the line, and learning to put more trust into Mabel when it comes to supernatural things. But if you couldn't tell already, my favorite part of this episode was definitely Bill. It was really great to see him again after Dreamscapers. I cannot imagine what it must have been like to wait for all this stuff to come out in real time back when the show was airing. Bill's amazing in this episode, specifically because he's put in a situation where he doesn't really have any powers and has to put up with being in a flesh prison. And he's defeated by the weakness of the body that he's possessing, which is pretty amazing. Now, I do plan to do a full and in-depth analysis of Bill at some point, but what's essential in this episode is that Bill doesn't count on Dipper and Mabel to care for each other as much as they do, and that he doesn't expect them to turn down their goals for each other, and he can't understand why they would think about each other above all else. Something else that I just love about this episode is how dark it's willing to get. Yeah, Northwest Mansion Mystery is visually scarier, but this episode, at least in my opinion, is pretty genuinely disturbing and twisted if you look into it. I mentioned Bill's masochism, but the way he manipulates Dipper is also pretty dark. I'll go more in depth on this in my analysis of Bill, but if you look at the way Dipper behaves and how he becomes a bit distant and untrusting of even Mabel, and it doesn't really help when she doesn't take him that seriously when he tries to tell her what's going on, I definitely see a certain resemblance to the way Stanford basically went insane after Bill convinced him to trust no one. And I see a bit of that here as well. Maybe not as intense as it was with Ford, but I think it was really interesting foreshadowing, intentional or not. But the darkest part of this episode isn't really even in the episode itself, but in Journal 3. Mabel put in an entry on Sock Opera in Journal 3 because Dipper was sleeping. And I'm gonna put a bit of a trigger warning here for, I guess, suicide. I don't really know how to categorize it. But apparently, Bill, in Dipper's body, Bipper, left a note in the car. And I'm pretty sure this was kind of there just for, plot convenience and just to have it here in the journal. But it was really interesting and really dark. So I have my copy of Journal 3 right here, so I'll read you the note. Note to self. Possessing people's hilarious. To think of all the sensations I've been missing out on. Burning, stabbing, drowning. It's like a buffet tray of fun. Once I destroy that journal, I'll enjoy giving this body its grand finale by throwing it off the water tower. Best of all, people will just think that Pine Tree lost his mind, and his mental form will wander in the mindscape forever. Want to join him, Shooting Star? Pretty creepy, huh? I actually really like this super dark addition to the episode. It just seems really in character for Bill, and my Darkest Desire animatic actually has a similar ending where Bill throws himself off the, loft thing above the stage. The journal also has some really cool fact, like that no one could actually see Bill's eyes, but if you looked at him sideways, you could see a flash of creepy cat eyes, and Bipper actually has better posture than Dipper. While this episode is great, it isn't perfect, and I do have a few critiques of the episode that I want to share. First of all, I really wish that we got to see more of Bipper in the episode. I would have loved to see him just being himself and causing chaos. On a similar note, I wish there was more foreshadowing on how he was defeated. Yes, it was established that Dipper was ticklish early in the episode, but I really would have liked to see Dipper just being, physically tired and irritated with Dipper's weaknesses throughout the episode, like him feeling really powerful at first, but the initial excitement wearing off to the point where he just wanted to destroy the journal and leave. I also really would have liked it if Bill's voice wasn't coming out of Dipper's mouth. I see this episode as a kind of body swap episode, and I think it would have added a lot to the comedy if we had them switch voices. Mindscape Dipper would probably just keep his voice, but it would have a kind of echoey kind of thing like Bill's with the sound effects and stuff. And Bill would just be talking in Dipper's voice. Like he's screaming about whatever, pain is hilarious or soda or something. And he'd just have, this major voice crack, and the other characters would, poke fun at him, and he'd get really ticked off. A criticism that I actually have about Mabel's plot in the episode is that I wish that Gabe had still been portrayed as desirable at the end of the episode, because even though he didn't want to go out with her, he turned out to be, really weird and stuff and making out with his puppets. And I think that the episode would have been more effective if she had still, been crushing on him, because it would have made her sacrifice seem more meaningful. My final criticism is that I wish the other characters had played a bigger role in the episode. Stan, Seuss, Candy, Grenda, and Wendy are really pushed to the sideline here, and I think we could have had some really interesting interactions between them and Bill. We see a little bit of this in the episode, but I think there could have been a lot more done with it, with Bill having to put up with Stan, and Grenda and Candy just being themselves, and Wendy doing whatever Wendy does. I think it would have been really funny if, Bill intentionally embarrassed Dipper in front of Wendy or something, or something along those lines. I think that would have been pretty funny. We see him interact with Grenda a little bit, but I think that if they were just being themselves, being Candy and Grenda, just super overwhelming and loud and squealy and boy-obsessed, I think that it would have been really funny to see Bill interact with them. And as far as Stan goes, we do get a little bit of interaction between them, with Stan kind of just being Stan, but I feel like there could have been more of that, and I think the episode would have been a lot better if we had that. So Sorry for the long ramble. I know that the episode was constricted to a 22-minute time frame, and there was a lot going on in the episode already. But I still think there could have been ways it was improved on, and yeah, so that's pretty much it for my criticisms. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the episode. Rest assured that Bill will never try to possess me. He doesn't like me very much after I stole his wings. Still hasn't got him back. Anyways, let me know if there's any other episodes you want me to review or any other characters that you want me to analyze. So that's all for now.